spirit that created that universe. That is who each one here is right here and right now. And I am absolutely knowing for this sacred time together that that light, that love, that flow, that joy of spirit just percolates through every single beautiful spirit here, just allowing each one to know who they truly are. And out of knowing who they truly are, that abundance of joy and love and wholeness and health and abundance, even material abundance, just flows through each life ever more strongly. And I'm knowing out of this sacred time together that any barriers to that flow are just dissolved into the nothingness from which they came, because they are not the truth. The truth of each being here is a perfect expression of that same creativity, that same spirit that created this universe, sitting right here and right now in this sacred space of Seaside Center for Spiritual Living. And so I just gratefully accept this flow, this joy, this love, this abundance as the truth of each person here and of this sacred time together, as I release this word to the law, knowing that it is now done in perfect flow and grace and joy and wholeness and love. And so it is. Amen. So good evening, everybody. Good evening. I really want to acknowledge you for all being here. With Mark Victor Hansen coming tomorrow, I know that a whole lot of people are probably going to be there instead of here. And I acknowledge those of you who are going to be here both times. And of course, in our lovely rainy, as this universe has blessed us with the abundance of much needed rain, I really appreciate you all being here. So thank you so much. So how many of you have been coming to all of these? Oh, excellent. Good for you, good for you. And of course, Dr. Christian talked about thinking out of the box, and Reverend Catherine talked about Joel Goldsmith's spiritual economics, just being in that presence of God first. And then Reverend Lori talked about forgiveness. So I'd like to open this space to see if anyone would like to share any insights, any inspiration that you have had from either last week or any of the weeks that you've been here. Anybody? Nobody, all right. I hear they were really good. All right, yes. I'm going to have to hand this microphone.
It's kind of embarrassing, but it was a good story. I was getting involved on the computer with somebody who was just opening me up and making me think that things were wonderful and it was going to be a great relationship and he was going to be home at some point soon. And the night before Reverend Lori's talk, you know, I hadn't heard from him in a couple of days, and the next day I got an email because he was over in Africa taking care of his father's affairs, and I had gotten an email from him saying that, I'm sorry I hadn't written you in a couple of days, but I got my wallet stolen and $3,460 was taken, and it made me very aware, because of the talk that was the night before, that this guy was trying to scam me, and I didn't get scammed because of that. So,
good for you. Good. Anybody else? Yes. Thanks.
Hi. Yeah, on Reverend Lori's, which was last week, she gave out these blank checks, and she says, okay, I want you to fill in these checks, and you can fill it into your favorite charity, or with $10,000. You have here $10,000. Well, she said $10,000, and I was here recording at the camera, and I heard $100,000. And I can remember Ed was up here, and he said, oh, what did you fill yours out for? And he said, 100,000. He says, I think it was only 10,000. I said, no, it was 100,000. So anyway, I filled mine out for 100,000, and I filled it out 100,000 to Seaside for their coming up bond, you know, that they have to pay their mortgage. So, but instead of saying, well, I have 100,000. If I have that much money, I must have more money. So I says, well, I think I'll write another 100,000 because I said, I just have it. I just know I have it. And then, of course, then I'm looking for a house too. So I wrote it out to the mortgage company for my house. Not that, I mean, that was only last week. But since then, the very next day, I went on the computer and it was Oprah. And I haven't been reading hers lately because it's just too much to look at. So I says, something called me to open it up. So when I opened up the screen, on the screen was a little ad that said, win $100,000 the very next day. Now I'm still waiting for it, but but isn't that weird? The very next day, it said, sign up for Oprah's magazine, win $100,000. You don't even have to sign up, but just fill this out, and you get submitted to win $100,000. So universe, it's $100,000. So, but either way, I just felt this vast opening. You know, the universe is just opening up to us, and whether it's that avenue or another avenue, it's just keeping yourself open to spirit, to the avenues, to the sources, and know that it's going to be there. If not here, it'll be around the corner. So I was very moved.
Here, Christina.
No, here,
I'll trade you one.
Okay. And that's the whole idea of tonight, and in this whole series, is to open to that lavish flow of spirit that's already here. And all we have to do is open up our consciousnesses and let go of some of the barriers to that flow, because it's already here. So anybody else? We'll take one or two more if anyone has anything to share.
I think for me it's a shift in attitude, because I'm going through a process where I have to dissolve our estate from 24-year relationship, and I was left in the position of having to go up to our house that's 100 miles from here and clean it up, repair it, and box everything up and decide what goes where. And I was feeling it was like just so much work and so much drudgery, and it helped me to reframe it. And what I'm doing it now is I'm saying that I am restoring the love that was in this house for the next person who's going to have it and love it the way we did when we saw it. And so I'm doing it now in joy. So it's a lot different. So reframing.
Beautiful. Thank you.
There you go.
And that's the whole idea in religious science. In our philosophy, we say change your thinking and change your perspective, and go to that higher perspective of spirit when you look at all these things in your life, like your issue of your house, and your issue of, and good for you for not falling into that scam. And wow, $100,000 to Seaside for paying our bond. And just to know, for all of you, it's not they at Seaside, it's all of us, because we are all Seaside, we are all it. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have time for one more, if one more person would like to share. I love hearing what's been happening in the last 3 weeks. All right, thank you, everybody. So the purpose of tonight is to even open more to Spirit's lavish, lavish flow. And I really like the word lavish, because that's what this universe is. When you look at the thousands, the billions of grains of sand in just one cup of sand at Moonlight Beach, or you look up at I think I've forgotten my numbers now, but I think there's something like more than 1 billion galaxies out in this universe. And you know what 1 billion is? If you started counting now and counted one every second, it would take you 32 years to get to 1 billion. You know how many cells are in your body? 70 trillion. You have 70 trillion. Is that abundance or what? You have 70 trillion cells in your body. You know how much 1 trillion is? If you started counting now and you counted one every second, it would take you 32,000 years to get to 1 trillion. You have 70 of those in this, your amazing body that's sitting right there in your chair. And every single one of those cells has approximately 300 proteins in it. I mean, and so when we open ourselves to the idea of this abundance of spirit, all we have to do is look around. All we have to do is look at our bodies, look at the stars, look at the grains of sand, look at all these people here. You know, I've forgotten how many billions of people we have in this world, or how many species there are, but this whole universe is just one of abundance. I used to have a plum tree in my yard, and it was just so amazing to me every year because these plums would just, I could only use some of them, and my neighbors could only use some of them, and they would just go on the ground and go back into the ground, and the birds would eat them. But this universe is so lavish that it even seems wasteful sometimes, but of course it keeps recycling everything because it goes back into the ground and the animals use it and all that sort of thing. But this is a lavish, lavish universe that we live in. And so in order to allow that lavishness to flow through our lives, what we get to do is open up our consciousness, as someone said a few minutes ago, to that. It's already given. It's already given. The quantum physicists say that everything is a wave of possibility until you put your attention on it. And when you put your attention on it, it comes into form. So what we get to do is put our attention on this lavishness of the universe, or put our attention on the things that we desire in our lives, or put our attention on the love that we are giving out to other people. And of course, this whole universe is reciprocal, and as we give love out, it comes back. As we give out our material goods, it comes back. Everything is a circle. And so what we get to do is just pay attention to it. And then as we're paying attention to it, we get to follow our intuition and take any actions that have to do with it. So I'd like for Melanie to show us this kind of cool video about this mindset of abundance, in every area of our lives. And I'm going to actually read the words as they come up. Abundance is a state of mind that starts small and grows tall. It's a state of mind. Abundance is a state of being that radiates from every cell in your body. Can you feel it radiating from every cell in your body? Abundance is a state of feeling that connects you to the flow of life. A state of feeling. It's not about getting things, it's feeling and being. The profound depth of your abundance cannot be measured just with dollar signs and piles of savings. Although money does pave your way when you walk the path of authenticity, abundance looks different on those who wear it. It makes one person rich and another person loved. abundance is vibrant and alive, waiting your call, summoning its power to wherever you are. Open your mind, your heart, your hands. Breathe in a beam of inspired abundance. In a blinding flash of creativity, let it consume all the fears you carry. Leaving you at peace with the abundance that is, and aligning your mind with the abundance to be. So let's just go inside for a moment. Just feeling that energy, that creativity, that flash of light, of abundance, just flowing from the very cells of our body with our 70, every one of our 70 trillion cells, just honoring that as the truth of who we are for a moment. And let's open our eyes. So abundance is not just money, it's not material things, it's every area of our lives. Health, love, wholeness, joy, bliss. And we were meant, as Jesus said, I'm come that you should have life and have it more abundantly. All the great mystics have been in that flow of life. And even Jesus, when he was walking out into the multitudes and someone touched the hem of his garment, that person was healed because they felt that energy. And we have that same energy because we are that. We are that same spirit of that I call God. It doesn't matter what you call it, but we are that here in this form, just sitting in these seats right here and right now. And sometimes it takes a while, though, to get to that place where we can be in that mindset of that flow of abundance and that mindset of truly knowing who we are. So there's some ways of getting there, and we're going to spend the rest of tonight talking about a little bit about that. And would you please start the PowerPoint, Melanie? So there are 4 stages of spiritual growth, and these stages are really, really important because to get to that place where we allow that abundance to flow, it's really helps to be in stages 3 or 4. So this, I'm going to read this because I don't know if all of you can see it. It says, consciousness is ever evolving in our personal and cosmic evolution. We notice 4 stages of spiritual development. They all serve a purpose and each one is important. So if as we're going through this, you see you're at one or another, don't make yourself wrong for it. It's just the way it is. As we progress up these levels, we learn to live our life with a greater understanding and trust in our higher power. So these are the 4 stages, and I apologize. My cats depleted the battery of my laser pointer. So, so if you look up on the top left-hand quadrant, you will see the victim. That is where most people live their lives. Has anyone experienced being a victim in your life? A lot of people live their whole lives at victim. And it's the universe does this to them. And everything is outside of themselves. and everything is a big issue. I actually lived a lot of my life at that victim consciousness until I found this amazing, amazing philosophy and realized that I could change my thinking and change my life. At one time, I was so broke that I could not afford a McDonald's hamburger without sharing it, and that was back when I ate meat. And then I found and I'd gone bankrupt, and then I found this philosophy and realized that I didn't have to be a victim of any of this. And I found this philosophy in 1983, and by 1988 I was teaching spiritual prosperity classes. So this stuff works. This stuff works. And we get to work it. It's not like we just wish it to be. There are some tools and things that we have to work. So the first thing is victim, and that's where the universe is doing everything to us. The next one is on the top right-hand quadrant is by me. And a lot of people, when they first get into this philosophy, they realize that they have some power in their life, and they can start creating their lives. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And the third one is the channel, the instrument through me, knowing that that spirit of the universe, that same creative energy that created this universe and all the other universes, is the same energy that flows through us. And then the fourth one is the thing itself, which is where the great enlightened ones lived most of their time. So the first stage, victim. You feel powerless. You're the victim of circumstances. Your boss shouts at you. Your dinner gets burned, and you ask, why me? Anyone ever done that? You hate your job. Anyone ever experienced that, hating your job? Your relationships are painful. And each failure seems to dishearten you more and more. Anyone experienced that? And it's really interesting, these 4 stages, because we all go back and forth, these stages. Even the great example and teacher Jesus, I mean, he went to victim once or twice when he cursed the fig tree because it wasn't giving it figs, and it wasn't even the season for figs, and he got really upset and cursed the poor little fig tree. And then he turned over the money changers because he got really, really mad at them. So even the great enlightened ones can go to victim. So it's really okay. And in my opinion, it's metaphysical malpractice to make ourselves wrong for going to any of those places. But when we go to that place of victim, we just have to realize that that's what we're doing. So then we can go to the next level. So again, the more victim. My friend Dr. Rebecca Pena actually created this. So she really got into the victim part here. In this stage of the journey of awakening, we are still asleep in the victim stage. The victim's attitude is the most common, but it hides the fears and doubts. So a lot of people, when they're at victim, are blaming others, they're blaming the government, they're blaming the economy, they're blaming their parents. Anyone ever done that? Blaming your significant other, blaming God, blaming all these people. And so you know someone's at victim consciousness when you see that they're blaming, or you know that you're at victim consciousness when you see that you're blaming other people. And once you realize that, then you can bring yourself out of it. Although it's good to acknowledge that you're doing it and not make yourself wrong for it, just go to the next level. So the second stage, the architect, and Reverend Rebecca teaches the Spanish classes online for me, so that's why some of them are in Spanish. We stop blaming. We stop blaming people outside of ourselves. We discover the power of creative thought. We learn that God is within us rather than outside of us, and there's a law that we can use to effect changes and claim dominion over our lives. We use this law effectively and feel powerful. And back when I first started in this philosophy in 1983, there was this big thing. You use the law to create parking places, palaces, and princes. So the 3 Ps. So you're using this law, and you have this ego thing because, wow, I'm so powerful. I'm not a victim anymore. And I can start creating all this stuff in my life. But there are a few drawbacks to that. So sometimes when you feel like you're so powerful, you think you have to do it all yourself. So you don't want to delegate it to anybody. And you're in danger of focusing your power solely on material achievements, and you might lose touch with your spiritual growth. That's where the parking places and the princes, or the parking places and the palaces come in. And for a long time, this whole philosophy was kind of thought of as very, very materialistic, and that's not who we are, and that's never been the truth. But so many people were so thrilled to get out of victim and find that they can start using the law that they got stuck there for a really long time. But however, when you're in stage 2, you still feel your power is limited, and with no higher power to rely on, you often are often exposed to doubts and fears. So how many of you have been at stage 2 and then you find out that you have some doubts and fears about that? Anyone want to share a little bit about that? I know when I got to stage 2, it was such a relief. It was such a relief to know that I was not a victim of this universe. I was not a victim of all the slings and arrows that were happening in my life, financially, with any of that. And it was just such a relief. It was like I could have lived at stage 2 forever. But it's a little difficult because you end up thinking that at least I don't know about you, but I felt like I had to do it all myself, and I was so powerful. But then if something didn't work out the way I thought it should, then I felt really guilty. It's like, I'm not using the law. What's going on? And that, in my opinion, that's metaphysical malpractice. And occasionally I still do that, but not very often anymore. The second stage is the architect, though. The good thing about the architect is you're taking charge of your life. That one of the things is ego plays a very important role, and ego is very important for us because without the ego, it would be very, very hard to live on this planet because we wouldn't, we would be so spiritual that we wouldn't be any earthly good, and we'd just kind of disappear, I think. So we do have to have some ego, but we don't have to have the ego that edges God out. And then you start to make progress, but instead of making progress by just allowing that universe to flow through you, you feel like you have to force it. Has anyone tried to force your prayers, trying to force your spiritual growth? Those of you who have been taking classes, I teach a lot of practitioner classes online, and my students are always saying, how come I'm not there yet? How come I'm not there yet? What do I have to do to feel this flow of spirit? And I say, you just have to let go. You have to let go. Don't try to force it. Because all of the great enlightened ones have said that when you force it, you keep that energy and that flow of spirit away. And then you understand the law of intention, and the law of intention is very, very powerful because you all know when you set your intentions out into the universe, the whole universe aligns to have that intention. The problem is when you set your intention and have an attachment to when or how it comes through, then you're forcing it and you're actually blocking it. But the manifestation of things and situations can become addicted. You want to progress no matter what. So you want to keep going, like some of my students say. And the cycle of life is we'll grow, we'll plateau, we'll grow, we'll plateau, we'll grow, we'll plateau. And that's kind of how it works. You don't want to, if you just keep growing all the time, you don't have any space to integrate the things that you've learned. You don't have any way of actually practicing them in your life. So it's like stair steps. It's not like a line. It's like stair steps. The third level. You know that Spirit is working through you. You begin to understand that givingness of life. Control starts to be replaced by a profound personal relationship with your Creator. You understand that the presence and the power that created the universe are for you to use. And you enjoy your time in the solitude and aloneness, courting the presence. I think that's probably what Reverend Catherine talked about 2 weeks ago, courting the presence with Joel Goldsmith's tools. So you get to that place where you're just allowing that flow of Spirit to flow through you. You're not trying to control it, but you're allowing it to flow. And sometimes that might feel like victim because you're not controlling it, but you're at a whole different place than that victim consciousness. You're just knowing that you are that presence of God manifested as you, sitting right here and right now in that chair, and you just get to allow it to flow through you. I teach a form of Tai Chi called Tai Chi Cha, and what I tell my students is what you have to do, the only thing you can do wrong is to work too hard at it. What you have to do is just let it flow. And when you let it flow, you allow that chi, which of course is the presence of God, but out at the senior center, I can't call it God, but you just allow it to flow. You just open yourself up to that energy. So when you're at number 3, you discover that there's not a challenge too big or a failure too important. You relax and you become receptive to that divine wisdom. So even if you have a challenge, how many have challenges in your life? We all do. And when you're allowing that Spirit to flow through you, nothing is too big. Anyone have failures in your life? I certainly have. So it's just part of that ebb and flow of life. And you get to look at it at a higher perspective, that mountaintop perspective that all the great enlightened ones talked about. And you just realize that there's nothing too big, no failure too big. And you understand that God works by means of you at a reciprocal proportion to your willingness to listen and follow the guidance received. And of course, how do you listen? How do you follow that guidance? What are some tools? You still have a microphone? What are some tools for following? Okay, meditation is one. What else? Journaling is one. What else? Intuition. And how do you get to your intuition? Listening. And so how do you get to that place where you're listening? Stillness. You go into that stillness. I even tell people you can go into that stillness when you're driving down the freeway and someone's cutting you off, and you just take a couple of breaths and remember that presence of God. That's all you have to do. What else? Any others? Prayer, yes. Any form of prayer, but especially our form of prayer that we have in our philosophy, spiritual mind treatment, is quite a powerful, powerful way to not only listen, but allow ourselves to speak into that law of the universe, the qualities of God that we choose to have in our lives. So in number 3, pain and sadness are still experienced, but these feelings do not control your life. Anyone had that experience where you're just allowing that energy to flow through you, but it doesn't control your life? Anyone want to share? Okay. Anyone else? I'll share a little bit. 15 years ago tomorrow, my husband made his transition, And these are the flowers that I actually had for Sunday in honor of that. And if I did not know these principles, if I didn't have that power of Spirit flowing through me, I would have been a basket case. I was still a basket case, but I was so honored to have these principles, to know that yes, you'll have pain and sadness, and you can get through it. And I compare that to my brother-in-law. My sister got killed in a car accident about 15 years ago, right before my husband died, actually. And he's still a basket case. He didn't have any of these tools. He's totally at victim about everything. And he didn't even get a headstone for my sister until last year. So it's just so stark, the difference of knowing these principles and being able to know that, yes, we're going to have sadness, we're going to have pain, but we have the tools to deal with it. And it's number 3, you understand the meaning of Jesus' words. I by myself do nothing, but it is the Father within me who does the work. So it is us as spirit. It's not our ego. So what that means, this is not our ego that does the work. It's that spirit, that universal spirit that created the universe, flows through and as us. That's what does the work. And all we have to do is get our false beliefs and our as Emerson said, get our bloated nothingness out of the way so that we can allow it to flow. Yes.
I remember, this reminds me of that. After the hurricane happened, I was watching Sunday Morning the other day, and there were some children that were on, that had been, without power and that sort of thing. And these children were talking about how they had started going outside and playing and doing things because they couldn't use their computers. And it was like a revelation to them. These are things that we all grew up doing, but they were not able to use their computers. And they were talking about how much fun it was. And then another child was talking about how it was fun just telling stories with their families and sharing with their families. And so in the middle of that tragedy, these children come to an awareness that, of living their life. And so if that's what you're talking about.
That's number 3, yeah. Yes. They were allowing that spirit to flow. And also in the whole thing of Hurricane Sandy, you see people coming and helping each other, even though there's a lot of sadness and a lot of grief. People are helping each other. That's expressing that God of who we are on this planet. Thank you. And then you align yourself to God's. You align your will to God's. And God is, we're going to talk about who we think God is in a few minutes. But we see that the failures can help us to make corrections in the middle of the road. So if we look at our failures and realize that all they do is allow us to make corrections, like sailing. So you're sailing, and so you're tacking a little bit. You're trying to go in a straight line, but you have to tack a little bit to the right and the left so that you get there. You never go in a straight line. In when we had the Apollo mission, there was this big thing out in the NASA website about how the rocket didn't go straight up to the moon. It had to tack a little to the left, a little to the right, a little to the left, a little to the right. Kept going up, which is what we do in our lives. But you have to tack a little bit and realize that there are all these adjustments that you get to make. Okay, the 4th stage. The 4th stage is where Jesus lived. It's where people like Joel Goldsmith lived, where the great enlightened ones lived. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time. And that's where we know that the Father and I are one. As Jesus said, he who has seen me has seen the Father. He resides within me, and I reside within you. And at this stage, we get to that place where we are identified with that Creator and the creation. And we get those mystical moments. Has anyone had any mystical moments? Yeah. And most of us don't have them all the time, but you get that glimpse of that greater truth of life in those mystical moments. And that stage is characterized by the humility of those who reach it, by an unconditional love toward all living beings, and the dedication of their life to serve humankind. So when we're at 3, we're allowing that lavish abundance of the universe to flow through us, and when we're at number 4, we're spreading it out to the world, and it's really, really good if we can live our lives at levels 3 and 4. Most of us live at level 3, usually not as much at level 4, and a lot of times at level 2. And when we're at level 1, we just realize that's where we are and say, okay, that's it. Let's go to level 2. So those are the 4 stages of spiritual growth. Those were created by Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, who's at the Agape Center for Spiritual Living. And I find that this construct really, really helps me. Really, ever since I learned it many, many, many years ago, it just really helps me to realize, if I'm blocking that flow of whether it's abundance of material goods or love or anything else in my life, when I'm blocking that flow, I just have to think, well, where am I? Where am I on that grid of spiritual growth? And then allow myself to come to that place where getting in that mindset, like in Luke 12:31 says, seek first his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. And in Matthew 6:33 it says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, for all things shall be given to you. And in the 7 spiritual laws of success, Deepak Chopra says, the source of all creation is pure consciousness, pure potentiality. That's when we're living in quadrant 4. That pure potentiality, seeking expression from the unmanifest to the manifest. And we realize that our true self is one of pure potentiality. And you can call it God, you can call it the Tao, you can call it energy, you can call it anything you want. But Chopra calls it pure potentiality. We align with that power that manifests everything in the universe. So what we get to do is when we want to manifest things in our lives, whether it's love, whether it's health, whether it's wealth, whatever it is, what we get to do is go to that place of pure potentiality that I call God, and then see what comes from there. And don't try to control it so much from level 2. Just allow it to flow through and as us. So I've talked a lot about God and a lot about that presence of the universe, that pure potentiality. But sometimes it's really hard to get to that place where we know that we are that, as all the great enlightened ones have talked about. And I heard this wonderful talk by Reverend Helen Street, who was a minister, I heard it in the 80s. She was a minister in Hawaii. She has since made her transition. But this talk that she did has just really, really changed my life. And what she talked about was we can't get from that God that is the Father, the big judge in the sky. How many of you grew up with a big judge in the sky? How many of you still might have a little bit of that in your consciousness? That big judge in the sky, to knowing that presence of God flows through and as us, and that is who we are. But it's really hard sometimes to jump from that victim consciousness to quadrant 4. And so what she says, you have to have an interim God. What you have to have is an interim God. So she called it Big Sweetie. And she said that she just created this concept of what she called God as this big sweetie who was the love of her life, was just showering her with every single good thing, and she would just lay back and let good sweetie peel her a grape. And she had to go through that to get to that place where she knew that she was living at level 3 or level 4 and allowing that presence to move through and as her. So what do you think? Anyone, can you create Big Sweetie? And she said that she stayed at Big Sweetie for many, many years until she got to that place where she really realized that that was who she was. But she, and all of us have experienced relationships in our lives that really worked. So you can think of Big Sweetie as that relationship that really worked at least one time in your life. Your life looks exactly like the God in which you believe. Looks exactly like the God in which you believe. So the idea is to bring up to your consciousness that God in which you believe and work on expanding that. So let's just go into a quick little meditation. So just take a couple of breaths. Just take a couple of breaths and think back to all the things that you have thought about what God is, what universal spirit is, Allah, Jehovah, the Tao, whatever it is that you want to call it. Think about everything that has been said to you about who that God is. Think about any time you were told that there's a big old judge in the sky that's going to send you to heaven or hell, depending upon what you do. And embrace that. There's nothing wrong with what you heard. There's nothing wrong with what you believed back then. But just look into your life and see if there's any vestige of that. See if there's anything that you still might believe about that. And sometimes it's comforting to especially when we're in grief or when we're in having problems or challenges in our lives, sometimes it's comforting to just know that universal presence that is us also surrounds us and is outside of us, and we can just rest in its arms. And then just take your consciousness a little bit. How do you really feel about God? Not what you really think you should think about God, but what do you really, really believe? Because what we really believe and the kind of God that we believe in is how our lives outpicture. So just be truthful with yourself. And it's okay, whatever it is that you believe. And then just let go of that. Embrace it and then let it go. And just take your consciousness up a little more into thinking about the possibility that this idea of God could be just the whole energy of the combination of all the energies of this universe just flowing into one. Every single person that was ever born and will be born, every universe, every galaxy, that is all God too. Or whatever you want to call it. From the tiniest beautiful flower to the farthest galaxy. Just feel that presence that is God through and as all of its creation. Feel that presence right here and right now.
In the midst of his children, the one said it would be. It doesn't take very many presence of the one is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the one is in this place. Surely the presence of the one is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the one is in this place.
So when you set your intentions from that place, from knowing that surely the presence of God is through and as you, Deepak Chopra says that the slightest intention goes out into the universe and the whole universe aligns to make that so. And that's what allows us to have our lives created in that lavish abundance of spirit. Alan Cohen, who wrote The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore, said that to think is to create. So when we're thinking from that place of knowing that that presence of God is who we are, we create that lavish abundance of spirit. And if we're thinking in a different way, he says that the most rudimentary form of prayer is worry. How many have ever done that? The most rudimentary form of prayer is worry, because every single thing that we think is a prayer. Whether we're thinking from that space of spirit, knowing that our slightest intentions come to fruition eventually, maybe not right this minute, but eventually. Or we worry about whether or not they're going to happen. When we worry about things not coming up as we would choose, when we worry about lack, everything that we put our attention on expands. The quantum physicists say that everything is a wave of possibility until we put our attention on it. So when we're worrying, we're putting our attention on things that we don't want. How many of you have worried about your finances in the past couple of months? Okay. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for that, but just realize that that worry will expand that idea and that feeling of lack. So what you get to do is, yeah, okay, so I'm worried, so I'm done now. No more. So you say, okay, that's a lovely thought. Let it go, and go to that place where you know that surely the presence of God is in this place, that is flowing through your life and even through your checkbook and your finances. Worry is the power of creation turning against your own best interests. And I learned this growing up. There was a lot of worry in my household when I was growing up. And that's one reason why I spent so much of my life at victim, because I was worrying all the time. You know, I remember going to the grocery store and being really upset and, you know, walking in really mad. And I thought, you know, people are going to see how upset and mad I am. They don't care. You know, I'm just doing this to myself. I'm just worrying about all this stuff. And the more I worried, the worse my life got. So when I found this philosophy, I got to go to that next level of consciousness and realize that I was actually creating some of these things in my life that I didn't want because I was worried so much about it. Same thing with health. Yeah, the doctor might give you a bad diagnosis. They might, because sometimes, even at level 3, the slings and arrows of life happen. And the more and yes, we have to admit the facts, and we have to do what it is that we are guided to do, but if we worry about it, we're just going to expand it and make it worse. Whether it's health, finances, relationships, any of those things that stop the lavish flow of abundance of all of that in our life is by worry. He says, when you're established in spirit, you do not need to search for your good out there. Your recognition of the good within you magnetizes all that you need. One of the most powerful ways to expand your attitude of gratitude is to bless the good that befalls others. Not being jealous. Bless the good that befalls others, because we are so connected. The quantum physicists say that the flap of a butterfly's wing in Beijing affects the weather in China. So in New York, sorry. So we are all so connected that as we bless other people's good, it comes back to us. It comes back to us. And that's not why we do it. We bless all the good in our life. And of course, what we put our attention on expands. And when we bless the good in others' life, we're still putting our attention on what expands. And when we allow that good to flow through our lives, we're setting an example for other people so that they can emulate us and allow that good to flow through our lives too, their lives too. Because the truth is, we're so connected, and when we're at level 4, we just want to serve the world. Just want to serve the world, and one way to serve the world is to bless all the good in this world and to be an example of that good for other people. So, our lives are exactly what we believe. So we've been talking about all this lovely, lovely stuff about the presence of God, but let's get down to a few minutes of nitty-gritty stuff. What do you really believe about money? Get down to the money stuff. And we can say, oh, we believe that money is God in action, and that money is this, and money is that. But sometimes when you get down to our very, very core beliefs, we get to let go of them so that we can go to that next level of spiritual awareness. So I'd like you to close your eyes again. We're going to do a quick little visualization here. So we're going to talk about money right now. And just pretend that you have a $100 bill. And take that $100 bill and look at it, feel it with your fingers. What does that $100 bill represent to you? Is money the root of all evil? Or is it something that can serve you in the universe? And now take that $100 bill and put it in your mouth. And start chewing that $100 bill. What does it taste like? Chew it all up. Chew it, chew it, chew it, chew it, chew it. What does it taste like? What does it smell like? How does it feel in your mouth? And then are you going to swallow it or are you going to spit it out? Whatever it is that you want to do with it, do whatever that is with your $100 bill. And then open your eyes. Okay, so let's have some sharing. Tell me about your $100 bill. What did you do with it? How did it feel? Anybody?
Didn't taste very good.
Didn't taste very good.
And I couldn't swallow it.
You couldn't swallow it, okay.
And so I spit it out.
You spit it out, okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right? Anybody else? Yes.
$100 bill to me felt excessive. Like it's way more than is required.
Uh-huh. Okay. Thank you. So did it feel wasteful to put it in your mouth? No? What do you mean by excessive?
Nobody needs that much.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Okay. Anybody else? Miriam.
Yeah, when I saw the $100 bill, I said, this isn't enough. I want $1 million bill.
Yes, and if the U.S.
I'm ready.
Treasury made $1 million bills, we would have done it with that. Anybody else? So how many found it distasteful? Okay. So if you found it distasteful, you might want to look at how you really feel about money and start processing some of that stuff, because we know that we can create anything that we choose from our thoughts. How many of you changed it into chocolate? Okay, so that's the power you have. You could have gone with that visualization and changed that into chocolate and had that sweetness of spirit flowing through your body. Unless you're not a chocoholic like I am, then you could have changed it into anything. But that's just so the idea is to look at some of your beliefs about money. You've probably heard, how many ever heard money doesn't grow on trees? Well, the truth is money is made from the linen plant, and it does grow on a bush, right? So it actually does grow in the ground. Any other beliefs about money that you've heard in your life? Anybody? Yes? It is nothing, and that's what it is. It's a medium of exchange. And I would kind of change that around to say, yes, it's a medium of exchange, and it's not nothing but it is. It is, it's how we manage to get by in this world, so it is kind of important. And how many have heard that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven? All right, what do you think about that? Does that mean we shouldn't be rich? And of course, we know the kingdom of heaven is already here, so that's a whole different thing. Well, yes.
The love of money is root of all evil. It's not money, it's the love of money.
Exactly.
So it's about what you do with that money. Do you use it to exploit people? Do you use it to help people?
Right.
Do you use it to better yourself? Do you use it to abuse yourself?
Beautiful.
So that's
exactly. And so it's your attachment to money. It's just a thing, just like this microphone's a thing, and it's just something that we get to use. And people put so much energy into it that they keep that flow of money from going through their lives because they're so attached to it. And that quote about the money going through, it's easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich, it's easy for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go through to heaven. Actually, in Jerusalem, there's this gate, and they called it the eye of the needle. And so to get into Jerusalem in the olden days, the camels would have to go through the eye of the needle, and they would have to take out off all their baggage, or they couldn't go through the eye of the needle. So what we get to do is we get to let go of all of our baggage of unforgiveness, like Reverend Lori talked about last week. We get to let go of all of our baggage of judgment. We get to let go of all of our baggage about we're not good enough. We get to let go of all that baggage so that we can experience that kingdom of God that is right here. How many of you have ever felt that you're not worthy enough to have some abundance in your life? That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. Is I have found, and I felt this way for so many years, I can relate to that of this whole worm of the dust, not worthy. But if we know that God is omnipresent through and as all of its creation, through and as each one of us, if we say we're not worthy, who are we say isn't worthy? God. or the presence, or whatever it is what we want to call it. So what we get to do, what I've got to do in my life, and what we get to do is realize that everything in this universe is an outpicturing of that creativity of the universal spirit, and we are that also, and that we deserve it because we are that. And if we say that we don't deserve it, then God doesn't deserve it, or Allah, or whatever you want to call it. So that takes a little bit of doing. So what I'd like to do is just, if you guys would pass out the handouts, please. Oh, the other thing that got me to the place where I was teaching prosperity classes by 1988 was to realize that not only was I worthy, but that all the abundance of the universe, I was just borrowing it. I was just borrowing it from this universe. And it'll go back to whoever my heirs are when I'm done. And it'll bless somebody else. So I was just borrowing it. So I'd like to just go through some tools very, very quickly. If you see, you'll see some basic ideas on the first section. And if we had 8 weeks together, we would experience all these tools. But I just want to go through them so you have some tools that you can actually use in your life. If you look on page 1, number 1 is be conscious of your choices. Everything you say, do, and think is a conscious or unconscious choice from that quantum soup of all possibilities that has already given. So it's already given. So you get to choose to worry, or you get to choose to allow that flow of spirit. You get to choose what really will enhance your life, or you get to choose something else. And the power of this philosophy is that we know we get to choose. Number 2 is circulation. There's a law of giving and receiving. And if we were doing a class, I would assign you to look at all of the things that are coming to your life unexpectedly. Like if someone takes you out to dinner, you honor that by tithing 10% on it. Or you get something on sale and you honor that by tithing 10% on it. Just because the whole idea of tithing, and I'm sure that Reverend Tammy will talk about, or actually Mark Victor Hansen will talk about that tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. But the idea is to what we put our attention on expands. So if you honor even the little good things in your life that have come into your life that are unexpected, those expand. And number 3, how many of you find it hard to receive? Okay, so here's your, if you choose to do this, and you can share with Reverend Tammy next week if you want, your assignment is to accept everything that is given to you this week, whether you want it or not. Whether it's a compliment, how many of you, when someone gives you a compliment, say, What you get to do is accept everything anybody gives you. If you don't want it, pass it on. Give it to somebody else. But don't say no. How many of you will this be hard for? All right. I won't be here next week, but I might see some of you at Seaside, and you can come up and tell me how it worked. It's a very, very powerful thing to do. How many of you still write checks? I don't write checks anymore, but if you write checks, it's really good to put on the memo section, I am grateful, IAG, or TU, thank you, or something like that. So that you are expanding that consciousness, that you're grateful that you have that money to pay those bills. It's not like it's a chore. It's wow, this is amazing. I have the money to pay this. Isn't this a blessing? Another technique to expand your consciousness, and that it comes down to money, is to, for a week, just for a week, get a $100 bill and carry it with you for a week. Don't break it. just carry it with you and see how that feels to have that $100 bill in your wallet for a week, and see if that allows you to expand your consciousness of your good. And then number 6 is to bless everything with appreciation. Remember that what you appreciate appreciates. And express gratitude for being alive, who you are. Express gratitude for those in your life, for what you do, for your talents. Even if you're in a job you don't like, you still have some talents that you're giving in that job, so you get to express that. If you're getting paid, even if it's not enough, you get to express gratitude for what you're getting paid. And as you bless what you have, that expands in your life. And then there's some tools for releasing. I'm very, very big on releasing. And I think Reverend Lori talked about that a little bit last week. But to just let go of when you're really upset. There's a back technique from a book called Get a Life That Doesn't Suck. And what you do, and if we had a little time, we'd actually do this technique when you're having an issue, when you're worried about your finances especially, or you're worried about something. You just take a breath, you breathe, you remember the spirit that you are. You acknowledge your feelings. We never push down our feelings. We acknowledge our feelings. If we're upset or we're afraid, we acknowledge them, and then we choose. Once we've acknowledged those feelings, then they have no more power over us. It's when we push them down as they have power over us. Then we get to choose the actions we'll take or the way we want to think about it. Then kick it into gear and act on that choice. That's the back technique. I highly recommend this book, Get a Life That Doesn't Suck by Michelle DeAngelis. And then I'm a very big fan of burning. If you guys come to our New Year's Eve burning bowl ceremony every New Year's Eve, including this New Year's Eve at 7 o'clock, what we'll be doing is writing down all the things that we want to let go of for the year, and we're going to actually burn it outside, and then we're going to set our intentions for the year by writing them down. And you can use the burning technique for anything that you're upset about, any worries that you have, you just burn them. Or if you don't have a fireplace, you can just tear them up and throw them into a wastebasket or shred them or anything like that. But never just do that. Always replace it with what it is that you choose to have in your life, with your intentions, what the truth of you is. Like if you're really upset about finances and lack, so you would write all that down, you would burn it, and then the truth of you is that you are a magnificent expression of God, worthy of all the abundance of the universe. So you just write those kinds of things down. There's a feeling letter technique. I'm not going to go over that today, but this is a wonderful way for forgiveness. You can just look at it and read it as just 3 little letters that you write. When my husband made his transition, I wrote lots and lots of letters to the doctor. I wrote lots of letters to God. I wrote lots of letters to him, and it really helped me forgive and get out of the shock of his sudden demise. So that's just a technique that I offer to you. And of course, the big thing is gratitude. To be grateful for every single day, every single thing that we are, every single thing in our lives. And so as we show this short a couple of minutes of this video about gratitude, I'd like you to take your notes and just write down 1 or 2 things that you have gleaned from tonight. Just 1 or 2 ideas that you've gleaned from tonight. We'll just spend a couple of minutes doing that as we show this video from Brother David Stendal-Rost, who is amazing. And it really works if you write down a couple of insights that you got from tonight, because it'll really go into your being.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you today. It's given to you. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now, and the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you do nothing else but to cultivate that response to the great gift that this unique day is, if you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. We just think of the weather, and even of the weather we don't think of all the many nuances of weather. We just think of good weather and bad weather. This day, right now, has unique weather. Maybe a kind that will never exactly in that form come again. The formation of clouds in the sky will never be the same that is right now. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet.
So, as we've opened our eyes, after we're complete tonight, if you want to share with me afterwards a couple of your insights that you wrote down, that would be lovely. Or if you would like to share with your neighbor a couple of insights that you wrote down, that would be lovely. But let's complete with a gratitude song.
I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's loving. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's loving. It is the will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I'm glad you're in my life. And if you want to, you can sing with me on this song if you know some of the choir does. I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's loving. Stand with me, agree with me. We're all a part of God's loving. It is the will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I'm glad you're in my life. I'm so glad. I'm glad you're in my life.
So I'm so glad that you're in my life. And I'm just so grateful for this sacred time together, for each of us that has spent this evening together just contemplating that lavish flow of Spirit in all of its wonderful forms. And I'm just knowing that each of us goes out into our lives inspired, enlivened, counting our blessings in total gratitude for each other, for this time together, for this beautiful community of Seaside, and for every single day of this blessed life. And so it is.